Okay, like yesterday, sorry, everyone can carry on learning, do whatever you're doing, but I was asked by Shlomo Katz, he wants to share here between Mincha and Maariv. I'm sure there's people more appropriate for this, but Ben Hashemayim, he asked me to do it on a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Once again, anyone wants to learn or do something else, they're welcome to. We already started yesterday with the Shulchan Aruch and the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch, the first halacha. The goal is that over time we're going to come out not only with a very simple, clear, foundational understanding of the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch, which is the way of life, Orach Chaim, the way of life, but we're also going to come out, please God, with some more panemius, connecting concepts of Torah that are very real. And we have a special guest that came up the hill to make sure, we've been learning for a long time now, since I moved into Frat for years now. And Baruch Hashem, we've been talking about the relationship flow. Relationship flow is going to also get strength, and this is where I'm going to post this on my podcast, because I want to strengthen the idea of waking up in the morning and focusing on the people in your Daled Amas the right way, the way the Shulchan Aruch wants it, and see how from Panimis Torah, from Likutei Halachos, from Rabbi Nachman, that we're going to get, Baruch Hashem, a great insight into helping our lives be better. That's what Rav Shlomo said. You need to give over Torah that helps people make their lives better, which everyone nowadays needs chizuk. Anyone thinks he knows everything, knows nothing, and the true person who knows something knows he knows nothing. So, Baruch Hashem, so then I have the permission to speak. So it says here, Halacha, Aleph, in the Likutei Halachos. Now yesterday we spoke from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, just a very short summary, about Shavisi Hashem Negdi Tamid, how we should have the foundational hashkafa, the mindset of being in front of Hashem always, the Melech Godel, the great King. It should bring us to a healthy level of shame and affect our actions in terms of how it affects our relationships. Obviously, when we're in front of Hashem, then we'll act in a whole nother level, like a Shabbos table. We mentioned Father at Shabbos table who's aware that this is Hashem's Shabbos and Hashem's Tish, his table. It's a whole different experience in the hashpah, the energy it gives over to his home. We also said Daled Amas Hashal Halach is where the Shechina Shore, as well as obviously V'Simcha. But we mentioned the idea of also Elul, Ani the Dodi B'Dodi Li, strengthening our relationship with Hashem Yisbarach, making that stronger, that it's a mutual connection. It's not just the year of the pachada that we're talking about when we're in front of Hashem, but it comes together like we mentioned Rav Kook, the idea of the Avos Hashem and the bringing it out, the derech of Rabbi Nachman in real time in Eretz Yisrael, through the Torah of Eretz Yisrael. Since it was his Yotzei yesterday, there was another Yotzei yesterday which I didn't mention, and I'm going to mention now, is Rav Shagor Feiber Mendelovich. Now I had the merit to learn from some of his Talmidim also, Rav Moshe Wilson, Zatzal, and many of his students, Rav Fisher Shechter and other Rabbonim, and over Shagor Feiber Mendelovich. So he was someone who I didn't directly learn from, but I looked into the eyes of his Talmidim and learned from them, many of them, because when Rav Moshe Wilson came to Eretz Yisrael, those 10 Shabboses that he was here, of many of the Talmidim of Torah B'das and Rav Moshe Wilson, and it was a packed experiences in Yerushalayim. I had the schus to hear and meet many special people, including Talmidim of Rav Moshe Wilson, who were Talmidim of the Rav I'm talking about, and like people like Rav Fisher Shechter, I mentioned already, Rav Mordechai Finkelman. There's lots of special Rabbonim that came out from this path, and it was his Yotzei yesterday, and he was also someone who brought to America, like we're talking about Rav Kook bringing Torah to Eretz Yisrael, Rav Shagor Mendelovich brought the Inyan of Torah and Yeshiva and made it a real opportunity for the Yeshiva world to grow and become what it has through Mesiras Nefesh and through a very true, sincere connection to Tzaddikim, which is going to be a big theme. He's very close to the Satmarov, he's very close to the Babich Rebbe, he's very close to all the Tzaddikim, and that's the energy that you get from his Talmidim, is an understanding that you have to come to the Tzaddikim to really understand this connection, because we were learning that the Halicha is going Halacha, as we begin the first Halacha, we're going in the walking through this world in the derech of Tzaddikim. So that means we need to connect ourselves to those Tzaddikim. So Baruch Hashem, he definitely impacted myself through his Talmidim and legacy.
So Zechus Yagim Aleinu, okay, so both of them. Zechus Yagim Aleinu. So now here we are in Likutei Halachos, and we're turning to Rabbi Nachman and his Talmud, Rabbi Nosson. And Rabbi Nosson wanted to begin Likutei Halachos with a key foundational Torah that will make a massive impact on our relationships. We already ended off yesterday with the concept of Modeh Ani and thanking Hashem, not just for your neshama that's returned to you every morning, that you deposit to Hashem and He gives you a new chelik of neshama, but also to thank Hashem for the fact that He gives you the opportunity to have a soulmate, to have someone lying there next to you. And that was the eights I got from my Rebbe. It changed my whole marriage, my whole shalom bias. To start off your day with an attitude of gratitude, the Reishis Chochma, Yiras Hashem, the first machshava, the Reishis machshava, should be a good machshava of gratitude, of thanking Hashem for your soul, and thanking Hashem that, wow, Hashem believes in you as well, but also believes in you to have this soulmate, to have this person that you can become one with. And that's how we ended off yesterday's session. And we're going to bring that from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is Halacha, and Niglas Torah, Pashtas Torah, into this Torah that Rabbi Nosson already understood. The panemius of this is as the Torah from Rabbi Nachman of his Azamra Elokai Bodi. Because remember, the Likutei Halachos is based on the Shulchan Aruch, but it's the panemius of the Shulchan Aruch. I actually had the schus to sit in a kollel, and through one of the organizations, I think it was Dirshu, I went through all of Mishnah Brura Yomi in Orach Chaim, and I had time, so I wrote my own little parish on the Orach Chaim. And I mean, it's not on the level of Rabbi Nosson, but the goal was to try and bring out very panemius Torah in the halacha, and not just to take it face value. So Rabbi Nosson, who was a huge gaon, and Talmud of Rabbi Nachman, understood that the foundational Torah of Azamra Elokai Bodi, of focusing on the Nekudah Tovahs, focusing on the good points, would be a key way to begin everything in Yiddishkeit, and especially for our generation. Because there isn't a person that I know, and I know myself, my own thoughts, that doesn't have a nudnik in his head saying you're not good enough, especially Elul. Elul's the best Yetzer Hara, the biggest yeshiva Yetzer Hara. It comes and tells us we don't, Rosh Hashanah's coming up, Yom Adin, and the Yetzer Hara comes and tells us, you're not ready, you're not. So obviously, thank God to Sifrei Chassidus, we understand Melech Besoda, we understand that there's a Torah here of Azamra Elokai Bodi, to choose into the Nekudah Tovahs, to sing out those good points, and that will give us the great hashkafa to be able to overcome this nudnik, this Yetzer Hara, this prosecuting force that's within each of us, and it's about around us, and it says we're not good enough. So, for example, I was sitting in front of Rav Shlomo, and he's telling me, do this, come and give a shir a few times a week. You have what to say, I know you do, and he's met my Rebbe, he has a bit of background on me, known each other for a while. He believes in me, but I have a Yetzer Hara voice in my head, but maybe the guy in the shul, he thinks I'm a bit not so. He's seen me, I'm not always holding the best way and davening, or maybe I'm not, the most, whatever his taina is. Rav Shlomo looked at me and said, no, man, you just got to do it. It's not, I said to him, I know the Rav doesn't have this issue. Like he goes up and he speaks and he doesn't even have the thought of the issue, which is a level. You have to appreciate Rav Shlomo. It's a madrega to get to a level. You don't have this nudnik pulling you back from doing what you need to do. A lot of us have the nudnik. Some people in the general world call it a fear of speaking in front of people. There's different ways of explaining it in a more logical, rational way. But on a panemius level, Rabbi Nachman gives us an eitz of fruit, and his Talmud brings it into the first halacha of Shulchan Aruch, of his gaba kari lamba b'boker, of what is hu bora hashacha. Already in the first lashon he brings, you have to be like a lion to mizgabe, and to wake up to serve Hashem Yisparach, and to wake up why is it used lashon shacha? There's a whole famous Torah from Brezov Tzadikim, the idea of over the shacha. All the negative, all the not good nekudas inside of you that are holding you down, like you wake up in the morning with tumas yadayim, you've got all the baggage, if you didn't do the proper espolidus or cheshbon and nefesh before you went to sleep, all comes and hits you straight away. As soon as you wake up, the Yetzer Hara is standing there with a baseball bat. Oh yeah, look what's about to happen today. Yeah, what do you plan to do today? And he starts taunting you. Yeah, stay in bed. You're worth nothing. Already from the beginning, those thoughts are coming. And Son says you have to be mizgaber like a lion. This is the derech of the tzaddikim. They fight with the Yetzer Hara and they ma'ora the shacha, they wake up the Nekudah Tovahs, the good points, so that the good points is the focus, the Nekudah Tovah, and not all the negative. And for our generation, this is perfect Torah for our door, for the eitzes of the Tzaddikim, that we are a generation that needs chizuk, pure chizuk. I feel that in a deep way, in Shalom Bayis, I was seeing different articles and people are talking about it in the general world, that 4 words can save people's marriages now. Judge your spouse favorably. I don't know what you think those 4 words would be to save marriage, but that's what people have come up with. Now, where they get it from? Probably from us, from the Jews. Anything of real deep wisdom comes from Am Yisrael, even though Chochmah b'goyim tamen. But the fact is, the world have realized that people are judging each other too harshly, especially in marriage. It's a big problem. And the amount of relationships that are not working out because of the whole social media experience is playing with people's minds. You don't have to get into all the negativity, but it's yedua that people imagine that these perfect husbands or perfect wives there's no such thing and never will be. They imagine that's what they should be married to. So the whole relationship is filled with judgment and negativity. And we know this week's Parsha, Tzedek Tirdof, that Hashem wants us to tune into the good. He wants us to judge positively. Yesterday we brought the pasuk Tamim Hashem Elokecha, Tamimus we spoke about. Today, because everything's connected with the Parsha always as well, we're going to talk about Tzedek Tirdof. We have to judge positively. And it really comes, Rabbi Nachman says in this Torah, that it comes Azamra Elokai Bodi from ourselves. Yeah, let's just read a little bit of the Lashon from Rabbi Nosson on this beginning halacha in Shulchan Aruch. The Ramah goes on what we mentioned yesterday. Shavis Hashem Nedi Tameh Zeh God B'Torah. So it comes, that's the Beis Yosef in the Ramah. By the way, we'll say a whole Torah just on why those 2 tzaddikim begin the Shulchan Aruch on Mizgaba Ka'ari and Shavis Hashem Nedi Tamid. You got Rav Yosef Cairo and you got Rav Moshe Isserles. We're going to talk about that at some point. I actually gave a share here, I think one Erev Shabbos, about this connected to Parshas Bashalach. But to come back to here, but we'll get back to that. We'll get to that because that's important. Maybe that'll be next week. We'll talk about it because it's an important foundation. Understanding who are the members, who are the rabbis who bring down the Shulchan Aruch. Why? Why Rav Yosef Karo? Why Moshe Isserles? Yeah. Why Rabbi Nachman? Rabbi Nosson? Why? Anytime you connect to a tzaddik, you have to start connecting a little bit to who they were. What was their shita? What was their message? What was their limit for Am Yisrael? So to understand that Rabbi Nosson wouldn't begin a Shulchan Aruch without a foundational Torah for Rabbi Nachman, Azamra Elokai Ba'odi would be amiss. He says, Zeh b'chinas od ma'at ein rasha. It's alluded to in a pasuk. He brings a pasuk, and it's a famous Torah in the Likutei Moharan, Torah Reish Pei Beis, that there is still a little bit in which a sinner is not. The od ma'at. That's why Azamra Elokai Ba'odi, the od. By ma'at shesham einu rasha. From that little bit, he's not a rasha. Is bonus, you have to focus in on that Nekudah. This is the whole thing. Because a person, the Rebbe's words, when a person begins to examine himself and sees he's far from Hashem, you have to focus on the little bit of good that's still there. And that means with this bonus, with a deep reflection. We have to look deeply into ourselves. Elul is the time for deep reflection, but not for the Averis. That was the mistake from the yeshivish world. Maybe in previous generations there was Shaveh. But for our generation, you come about tshuva, walked into a shiva, and the Rav Mashkiach gets up and he says, you need to focus on all the sins you've done and do tshuva, and you just make this guy walk back out or go after derech, or, it's not going to work. You have to teach him how to focus on the Nekudah Tovahs. Well, I did it in shiva. I actually have one of those books. I got a diary, and every day I wrote down all the good things I did every day. And that gave me koach to keep going ahead in yeshiva, day after day. When I had a whole world around me saying, what are you doing in yeshiva? All my friends, family, all this nagdus, all the voices, you need to get a job, you need to university, you need to... And I was like, I need to get my Yiddishkeit. I didn't know anything come out when I first came in 1998 in Osamer. I didn't know anything. So I need to get... My wife was in the base. She knew more. She was from a more traditional background. But I didn't know anything. So I needed to get that down. But I needed the right mindset to do it successfully. And that was this point of focusing on the good every day. What did I do good? Not what I didn't do. By finding the good points, one then bring himself to joy, and then he'll be able to daven. Zeh b'chinas Azamra Elokai Bodi. This famous Torah Reish Pei Beis. It's a pasuk from Tehillim. We say it every morning in Kuf Mem Vav. 146 Tehillim. The second pasuk. Ayadei od ma'at shemotzi ba'as ayadei yochel azameh b'hodas Hashem. By finding that little bit of good, then you'll be able to sing and praise Hashem. So look, we were saying before, relationships. Yeah. We start the day thanking Hashem. We've got this soulmate. But not just that, now we have to go to the next shlav, and we have to thank Hashem. The Nekudah Tovah is Hashem believes in us, and all the good parts inside of us, and through that we'll be able to see the good points in our spouse. And by seeing the good points in our spouse, that will give us ability to have Shalom Bayit. Yeah? And Shalom Bayit, the Shechina Shore. Yeah? Hashem wants us to have Shalom between the Yud and the K, from the Ish and the Isha, and it brings the Shechina, brings the Shem Hashem into our home. But how's that going to happen? It has to be through a positive view of our spouse and the constant focus. If you take it further, someone asked me yesterday to mention the famous Torah from Rav Shalom Aruch. I worked with him for 5 years. I saw the Shalom Bayis of Rav Shalom Aruch. I was on the plains with him with his Rebbetzin for weeks and weeks every year, and I worked with him for 5 years. And I saw the Shalom Bayis, and I saw how one of the Nekudas was he never ever criticized his wife, and he always says, Tzedeket, you're right, you're correct. He lived this Torah of Azamra Elokai Bodi to the highest level. And not everyone knows this concept, but basically he thinks it's forbidden to criticize your wife, to put it down. Now some people say, but that's not reality. People have different opinions about that. I think the only real way you can really get to what Rav Shalom Aruch is saying in the full sense is you have to be on the level of what Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nosson teaches of hisbodedus. He uses the lashon here, hisbodedus, focusing through deep thought. But we know from Rabbi Nachman's Torah is that it's also hisbodedus. Only through hisbodedus can a person really get to a level where they really cleanse themselves an hour a day, so they can look at other people with such a positive eye, because they've done the inner work. They've faced the demons. They've done the inner battles. So each person themselves has to be real. Are they doing the inner work? And that will give them the strength to focus on the good. One of the things I get tremendous chizuk from my son, just to end off, Baruch Yitzhak, he fought in Gaza, in Lebanon, in Syria, the last 2 years of the war, almost. And now Baruch Hashem, he's finally out of the army. He said, thank you Hashem, he got through safely, and this is one of the places where we daven for him so much the whole way through, and his unit, thank God it all came out safely, that he himself says, and one he very much does is hisbodedus. That's a big key to his success during the war. He brought the garden of Munah with him wherever he went, and even some of the boys who were from completely religious homes, they came across the book and it inspired them, and now they're keeping more Yiddishkeit. One of the boys, an Ethiopian descendant boy who lives in Ashkelon, we had the merit to drive him back a few times to Ashkelon, and he said to us, and he gave to my son as we was finishing the army, he gave him Mesilat Yesharim. He gave him a bunch of Sefarim, Orcha Tzadikim, gave him a whole bunch of Sefarim that he's learning now. That's where he's at already. The Garden of Munah was just the entrance, but now he's like learning all the other Sefarim, and he's come out of the army, my son also. But what my son said connects to this is we have to work on ourselves, on our inner self. And the way we have to do it is the right way. A lot of people work on themselves, but it's a very musadika way, very harsh. Now the only problem is with doing that, and Rav Simcha Bunim says you have a heter to do that, because you have a right eye to look at other people positively, like Dr. Yudeman looks at me positively, or you have a left eye to look at yourself with a little bit of self-judgment, self-evaluation. That's the Rav Simcha Bunim B'Shishka. But for our door, because we've probably been, our eyes have seen a bit too much that we shouldn't have, and etc., 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 I would suggest that the left eye, we have to also be a little bit more veered towards the right as well. We have to look at ourselves with a positive eye. And that's what Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Nosson is saying, Azamra Elokai Bodi, that we have to tune into the Nekudah Tovah. That's the melodies we find within ourselves, the little bit of good, the Nekudah Tovah, and he goes through this again and again. Even when it's mixed with not good, you're still going to find some little good points, as it says in Likutei Halachos, right at the beginning. And through that you can merit tshuva. Remember, Elul, we want to do tshuva. How are you going to merit tshuva? How are you going to be able to daven? How are you going to have the energy to go weiter in life? By focusing on the Nekudah Tovahs. That's the key. That's going to give you the strength to come to put tefillin on every morning, come to daven,
It's going to give you the strength to say the good words to your spouse, to be a good person to the Kehillah, through the Nekudah's Tovahs, through the good points. That's going to be the key. And we'll end off that we're going to start, please God, we're going to explain this first halacha, and we're also going to explain next time rising from spiritual slumber, which is very appropriate for Elul. Everyone should be blessed with beautiful Shabbos. And every morning when you wake up, I recommend it very strongly, based on what we've learned, to thank Hashem that He believes in you, Modeh Ani, and to thank Hashem for the people in your lives, especially your spouse. That would be a good thought to begin the day with an attitude of gratitude. And the next shlav is then to take it into this avodah of Nekudah's Tovahs, to try tune in straight away into the good points in yourself and the good points in those around you, and that will give you ability to ma'oyer the shachar, to wake up the darkness and the black of our golus, and to come, please God, to the Gula Shlema, which will come. Amei Kulam Sadiqim, will be revealed that we're all Sadiqim, and that Hashem loves us and sees only the good in Am Yisrael, and that would be the Gula Shlema b'mhevi menu. Amen.